Oh yes, now we are here, and we are talking about divorce, and according to the biblical standards, like we have talked about, that today you will have to know the both sides, the marriage and divorce. Now, according to Matthew chapter 19, if we go back in Matthew chapter 19, because now we are talking about divorce. There are many things that have led into divorce. We will not enter into details, the character, the gifts, the work, the misunderstandings, uh, worldly lusts, uh, sexual immorality, cheating, name it. All those things, I may not go much into details about them, but I want to talk about divorce in terms of how was it handled in the beginning, and what is the Bible telling us how we have to handle it right now. So in Matthew chapter 19, Jesus was asked the same question that I'm also uh, asking ourselves, and also he answered. When he was asked this question, he answered it. He didn't leave it unanswered. So in Matthew chapter 19, verses from verses 1. Now it came to pass when Jesus had finished these sayings that he departed from Galilee and came to the region of Judea beyond the Jordan. And a great multitude followed him, and he healed them there. Now the Pharisees, in verses 3, the Pharisees came to him, tempting him and saying unto him, is it lawful for a man to put his wife away for any or for every cause? And Jesus answered to them, have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? And he said, for this cause, in verses 5, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall join to his wife, and the two shall be one flesh. And then he continued in verses 6 and said, therefore, they are no more two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined, what therefore, what God has joined, let no man put asunder. So these verses they show us that these people were joined as one. You cannot separate them because from the beginning, from the creation, even when you read in Jeremiah chapter 1 from verses 1 up to 6, he said that he knew you even before you were formed into your mother's womb. So this is what Jesus is telling. And Jesus is quoting the words of Adam in Genesis chapter 2. He's quoting his words. He's saying that for man will leave his father and mother, and the two shall be, because now the body has been joined back, the rib has been joined back to its body. So you cannot separate it. You cannot separate. It says that what God has separated, no one can. What God has joined, sorry, no one can separate. This is what Jesus was saying. These were the words of Jesus Christ, which he was saying that you cannot separate what he has joined. And that's why also the Bible says that where two or three gather, I will be amidst them. Why? Because the two is talking about the man and the woman. When they are there, because it is me who has joined them. When I look at them, I'm with them because I see them as a church. He said, this is how you look at the church. The church starts with a man and a woman. It is where the two have joined, I am amidst them. So you cannot separate them because, as we have seen in marriage, that this is a body. It's like someone saying that he wants to separate you from your hand, he wants to separate you from your leg, he wants to separate you from your head. It cannot happen. It cannot. He said, "What God has joined, let no man separate." And also, there is something which I also learned from Apostle Grace Lubega of Valero. That the same when he talked about, he said that even when Jesus came and said that, and he said that the time has come, a daughter will be separated from the mother separated from the father, the mother-in-law from the daughter-in-law. That all these people, there is a possibility of separating them. This is what Jesus was saying. But in all his texts, he did not mention about a man and his wife. He said even the children can be separated from the parents. He said even the in-laws can be separated from each other. But he did not talk about the manner of why, because the, in the heavenly places or in the heavenly realm, these souls are one. They are inseparable, like water and blood. You can't separate them. He says these two we cannot separate them because according from the beginning, even when he was quoting, he told them in verses 4, he says, and he answered unto them, have you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them at the beginning? He made them male, and you cannot separate what he has joined. So when I'm talking about divorce, then we come to now today, who is joining? It's God who joins us. Now, who is separating us? It is the authorities that are separating, called the government, especially this government that is head of separating. That's why when I sit with my fellow believers, those that were within, we are of the same faith, I ask myself and I ask them this question, like, when did we start, uh, because take an example, when you bought your land and you assigned me to take care of this land, and you said, Mama, take care of my land, prepare it, make it plant, but be, you are a steward to this land. And then you hear the news that the man that you gave authority, me that you gave the authority and approval to take care of your land, all the rights, now I am selling your land. Because this is where we are. This is what we are talking about. Because if God is joining, and the church says our forefathers who came, our fathers who came before us, those who came and brought Christianity, brought the gospel, they gave the rights to government. They said, oh, government, you are the ones to approve and certify of the marriages that we have in church. So, but the person they gave these rights, the government is, when people are divorcing, they run to government. Now that's what I'm asking you. That if God is joining and government is separating, who is greater? Is government greater than God? Because God has joined and government is separating. And even we as the church, we are okay with it. Because you join couples here and tomorrow they are separated in government. And we separating them, the person we have given right. Is there a possibility whereby we can raise back as the church and we call back our marriage so that it is run in a Christian way, not in terms of government, not in terms of the knowledge of men? Can we bring back marriage to us, back to the house of God, back to the body of Christ? Because the people that we have authorized, they are the ones who have separate. Because it's like if we read it, it's like saying that the people you authorize someone to separate. That's what when I look at it, that's how I see it. That you authorize the government, that you say that, oh, government, I've joined these couples, but I've given you authority, you separate them. Because whoever is divorcing, they run to government, and government separates them. And who gave the authority to government? It was us, the church. It was us. So that's why there is a need for us as the church, for us as the believer, to go back and we revise this issue, we revise this institute, we revise um, this idea, this issue of divorce for the Christian man. For me, I have no problem when someone is in civil marriage, or whether someone is in traditional marriage, or any other type of marriage, which is accept from Christian marriage. If those people separate, I have no issue with them. I totally have no issue with them. You can separate, it is okay. You can divorce, it's okay. But if your marriage is according to Christianity and then you have divorced, that's where we have an issue. Because according to us, we don't have a window of separation. We don't have a window of because the two actually say the two. Why do we say the two? Because before this was a body and it was missing its other part, which is the rib, and the rib was perfectly fit into this body. Now you can't separate them because it is one body. When we look at you, when they look at me, they look at me as normal. They cannot separate me from my hand. They cannot separate me from my nose. They cannot separate me from my head. But they look at me in my fullness and they say, now this is Norman in his fullness and complete. Because that's what marriage brings to us. That's what the church brings to us. That's why even Christ says that we are the body. There's a part where Paul says that we were bought at a price. We were bought at a price. That now we have become temples of Christ. That this body now is the temple of Christ. Why? Because we are here to manifest the calling and the purpose of God. And in that calling and purpose, divorce and separation is not among them. Now, others will say that, other scholars will say that in this version, there is this verse, or this chapter, there is a point where God gave a provision. But let's continue and we see. Then in verse 6, he says that, therefore, they are no more two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man put asunder. They said to him, why did Moses then command? What did Moses then command to give a rating of divorcement, to put her away? And he said to them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wife. But from the beginning, it was not that because of the hardness, you pressure. Actually, even Moses to allow you to divorce, it was not out of Moses. It was not out of God. It was because of your pressure. If you read in Romans chapter let me get it for you. Romans chapter 1, because Romans chapter 1, there are things that God just lets, because you are pressuring, you are pushing him. He says that because you have pressured me, you have hardened me, now let me let you be. That is when we read in Romans, if I'm right. Let's them in this book of him, because that the new God. Then in Romans chapter 1, verses 25, it says, who changed, that is people that who exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshipped and served the creatures rather than the creator who blessed forever. For this God, for this cause, God gave them up to vain passions. For even with God gave them up to vain passions. For even women exchange their natural use for what is against nature. That for this cause, there's a time when you pressurize God. Jesus is saying that this is the reason why Moses allowed you to divorce, because it was not out of Moses, it was not out of God, but you pressurized him, you hardened him. So because Moses wanted to feel safe, because Moses wanted this, he had to let you. Said, okay, you divorce. But Jesus says that, but it was not so in the beginning. It was not so in the beginning. So you as the church, if we are still silent and government is divorcing what we have joined, we still have questions. We still have questions. We still have many things to answer. We still have to wake up. We still have to raise up. And we fight for this institute of marriage. We bring it back to church. We own it. Let our marriage be owned by church. Let our marriage be owned by Christ. Let our marriage be owned by God, not government. Because the one we entrusted our marriage with now is separating them. And God is saying that it is not so. And he says, and in verses 8, he said that Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, he suffered you to put away your way. But from the beginning, it was not so. Then in verses 9, it said, and I said to you, whoever shall put away his wife, except for fornication, and shall marry another, commits adultery. And whoever marries her, which is put away, do commit. Actually, Jesus says, okay, if you have also pressurizing me, I'm also giving you a window for divorce. He says the only window I'm giving you for divorce is adultery. The only window I'm giving you for divorce is sexual immorality. But he says, if you divorce, there is no window for you to marry again. There is no chance for you to marry again. There is no chance. That's why when Paul understood this in First Corinthians chapter 7, he said that if you have any issue with your loved one, the one that you're married with, actually Paul calls marriage a bondage. You are into bondage. You are into a captivity. You are a captive. Because these parts of ours, they are captive to us. We can't let them go. You can't be there and say, today I'm letting go of my leg. You cannot. You do whatever it takes so that you keep your leg with you. You do whatever it takes that you keep your lungs with you. You do whatever it takes that you keep your eye with you. You do whatever it takes that you keep your rib with you. And the rib does whatever it takes to see that it clings so hard. It clings and it holds firm of its body with the Lord. That's why we say that the biggest role of the matron and the best man on a wedding is to make sure that they keep these partners together in marriage. They should be able to guide, they should be able to counsel, they should be able to advise so that these two can keep in marriage. But if you don't see that in your matron, if you don't see that in your best man, because these are your right hand, man, don't just choose people because they are your friends, they are your bar mates, they are your drink mates, they are people you play your games with. But you have to see this ability. Do they have an ability that they can do whatever it takes to keep you and your wife or you and your husband in marriage? Then that's when you say that now I appoint you as my matron. I appoint you as my as my best man. So that's what Jesus is saying. And because marriage is divorce, and in verse 10 it says that his disciples said to him, if this is the case for the man, be so with his wife. He said, if this is the case, now, yeah, because marriage even it questioned, it examined the hearts of the apostles, of the disciples. They said that if this is the case, after they had what divorce is like, they said, if now this is the case, if now this is the case in verses 10, if now this is the case of the man be so with his wife, it is not good to marry. They said now it is not good to marry because marriage was another covenant. It is it is a place in our Christianity. It is a greatest covenant. Even the disciples feared it. When you look at Paul, we don't see where Paul is marrying after he accepted Jesus Christ. When you look at most of his disciples, actually we get to know Peter that he had a wife because Jesus prayed for the mother-in-law. But the disciples, when they got to know this, actually, even that's why Paul is saying that it's better you remain a virgin. Why? Because this marriage, it brings the seal of God, the Trinity in it, that the way you cannot separate God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's how they also look at marriage. It's a very great and great covenant. And that's why they say that as your body, love your wife as your own body. You are inseparable. And also, you woman, look at your husband as your Lord. Who can, and Paul says in Romans, who can separate me from God? Who can separate me from the love of God? He said, no matter what, nothing can separate. So, divorce is no exemption. But today I'm talking about us, the church raising again, the leaders raising again, the chosen raising again, that we fight and bring back marriage. Because the person whom we call the government to join marriage is divorcing what we have joined, is divorcing what God has joined, and we are silent. We should come back and we fight for that. We bring it back ourselves. So we will keep on bringing different people that have more knowledge into the law of marriage, into the law of government law, constitution, talks about marriage and how it came into this, the church leaders who tell us how it entered there, so that we can broaden our knowledge and our, but for me, that's what I see. So next time, that's what we'll be talking about. I'll not go very far from this, but when we talk about divorce, that's how it should be in us. If you want to understand, read Matthew chapter 19, the one we have read, and also read First Corinthians chapter 7, then you get to know. Because Paul says that marriage is bondage, is captive. And also Jesus confirms that is captive. The one you are joined with, it is for better. That's why we make vows that for better, for us, in goodness and in health, in rich and in poor. Why? We are saying that our marriage, that our marriage vows, our marriage is not built on this earthly standard. We are surpassing the earthly ways and the knowledge of men, that we are beyond them. We are inseparable. And we say it's only death that do us part. So that's what I'm telling you. Can we come back to the truth? Can we come back to the foundations of marriage? Because in the foundation of marriage, there is no window for divorce. For you, my brothers and sisters who want to enter into marriage, you should know of this. For you who are into marriage, this is what you should reflect and meditate on. And may God bless you.